Right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to look at English foreign policy under Henry VIII in the early 1520s. So the context of where we'd left off, peace through honour, Wolsey's foreign policy 1518 to 1520. 1518, the Treaty of London is signed. It's Wolsey basically hijacking an idea of Pope Leo X to unite the Western powers against these infidel Turks. So it's this non-aggression pact that she signed between 20 member states. There's an Anglo-French agreement as part of it, which sees England giving Tournai back. But the Duke of Albany agrees that he will stay out of Scottish affairs, so England gets something out of it. Wolsey is appointed a papal legate at the end of this, so a huge amount of prestige is bestowed upon Thomas Wolsey. And it's seen as a big positive. London, England are at the centre of this huge treaty, which is a big deal. 1519, though, the treaty is broken. It's proved to be worthless. Also, it's a year that Maximilian dies, and Charles takes over. Charles V of Spain becomes the new Holy Roman Emperor and King of Spain. This represents almost the beginnings of the Habsburg-Valois conflict, this conflict that lasts between which lasts between France and Spain. So 1520, we see the Field of Cloth of Gold. So Henry meets Francis, who's going to be King of France and his great enemy, at Calais, and it's an opportunity for the two countries to improve their relations. At the same time, Charles is desperate to form an alliance with England. So he meets with Henry in May and July of 1520. The Field of Cloth of Gold is in June 1520. And there's been quite a lot of debate about the Field of Cloth of Gold and whether it was a serious attempt to form a French alliance or an attempt to put pressure and gain concessions off Charles. England was always likely to side with Spain, to be honest, because of Henry's dislike of Francis, trade links with the Low Countries, the fact that that Francis was unpopular with the Pope because of France's ambitions in Italy, and Henry's overriding ambition to be crowned King of France as well. So in 1521, England tries to broker a three-power peace conference after Francis declares war on Charles by invading Luxembourg. This war lasts until 1559. But later in the year, England signs a peace deal with Spain, or a treaty with Spain, the Treaty of Bruges. And this is an agreement whereby England will invade France unless the French agree to make peace. It was delayed because England wanted their French pension in 1521. But once they receive this instalment, England is good to go to war with France again. So we see the second French wars launched in 1522. Charles, under terms of the Treaty of Bruges, is betrothed to Henry's daughter Mary in a marriage which never happens. So this war would need to be funded through taxation. It was not as popular as the 1513 uprising, and in 1522 loans were collected. In 1523 there was a further parliamentary tax of £800,000, or where Henry asked for £800,000. He never got granted this much from Parliament. So 1522, the Earl of Surrey launches a raiding party in France, makes no territorial gains and significantly gets no help from Charles with this. In 1523, the situation gets better for England. So Francis has to put down an internal revolt by Charles, Duke of Bourbon, who is a leading member of the French nobility. So a three-pronged attack is planned against the French. Charles V, Henry, and the Duke of Bourbon as well. So the English force was raised at a cost of £400,000. It was led by the Duke of Suffolk, but it failed. And one of the reasons it failed, the key reason it failed, was because of the weather. It was very wet and there were supply problems. Henry was also once again left stranded by Charles. So this really represents England's best chance of taking France at this point. The internal rebellion, the fact that Francis was being pinned down by Charles in Italy, it's partly bad luck, which means that Henry doesn't achieve his ambitions in 1523. So 1525 is another key year as far as foreign policy is concerned. So Francis's forces are routed by Charles at the Battle of Pavia, a really important battle which takes place. Francis is captured by Charles and he is taken to Spain as Charles's prisoner. So Henry reminded Charles what he had to gain from this whole situation. Charles was betrothed to Henry's only child at this time, Mary, who was aged 7 at the time, and he would stand to inherit the thrones of France and England through a marriage to Mary. However, Charles breaks off his proposed marriage to Mary. So Henry's initial aim, as a result of this, of another betrayal by Charles, is to launch an invasion on his own without the help of Spain and Charles. But to do this, he needed to raise money. So Wolsey is put to work, and Wolsey is told that he needs to raise a non-parliamentary tax. Henry doesn't think he can go to Parliament and ask for another tax. So Wolsey does so, and this is known as the amicable grant. So coming so soon after the parliamentary tax of 1522 and 23, it was deeply unpopular, and there was basically a refusal to pay it in East Anglia and in Suffolk. So the amicable grant ends up getting abandoned because of this opposition. It's abandoned in May of 1525, and many historians have pointed to this as the beginning of the end for Thomas Wolsey. Certainly another failure which comes shortly afterwards with the King's Great Matter seals Wolsey's fate. So in response to Charles's snub, Henry performs what is referred to as the diplomatic revolution, and he signs the Treaty of the Moor with Francis, who at this point had managed to escape from Spain. So Henry, under the terms of the Treaty of the Moor, agrees to give up his claims for France, and he receives an annual pension of £20,000 a year. Unfortunately, with regards to the big crisis which is about to dominate English affairs, the King's Great Matter, the diplomatic revolution could not have come at a worse time for Henry.